watching. Thank you for supporting my dad. If you like his videos, please follow him and share his videos to spread the word. Please subscribe and remember, Jesus loves you.
Hi, this is Adam from Goldbusters. Look, with all the financial instability around the world, we're seeing more people than ever before turn into precious metals, physical gold and silver, as a way of securing, controlling and protecting their hard-earned money. If you'd like to do the same and take the next steps in securing, safeguarding your finances, then we'd love to help you. Click on the Goldbusters link below and we'll get in contact with you and find the best solution for you and your family.
Well, welcome back to Leigh, Dundas. Great to see you again. It's been a while.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here again, Charlie. Thanks for having me on short notice.
No, it's an absolute pleasure because you're doing some great work over there. You're doing a lot of hard work behind the scenes.
Indeed, indeed. There's a lot of work to be done and it takes a village. You know the saying. You're doing a great deal of work yourself, my friend, over across the pond.
Well, it's a question of just keeping the momentum, keeping people positive. A lot of people are getting down, and I had a conversation this morning with Simon Parks, and Simon was saying, Charlie, when's it all going to happen? When's it going to happen? I said, look, World War II took 5.5 years. This has taken 20 months, and it's a far bigger job, and we're nearly there. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And really, my job is just to keep people positive in the knowledge that God already won this. What we're seeing now is the pantomime play out, and we're starting to see people like yourselves who are doing the hard work behind the scenes to expose them and to hold them accountable.
That's right.
And because a lot of these people, as with Sidney Powell, that will have to face the consequences of their actions. And that's where, for me, that's when we get into the exciting bit.
As a person who loves justice, Charlie, I couldn't agree more. When you start to see justice play out instead of rampant injustice, which is what we've had so much for the not just the last year and a half, but all of the years that led up to it, and people just weren't aware because it was under the surface. But now, you know, every soccer mom from San Diego to Maine has been forced, I think, if they're remotely attuned to any sort of real media, to recognize that this country has been on a challenging and frightening course for a long time. You know, Khrushchev said decades ago, I'll take America without firing a single shot. And my goodness, he or somebody, you know, who's doing the devil's bidding in the interim has certainly gotten us far too close to that cliff. But lots and lots of good people around the world, from your country to mine and all the way around, are really doing the hard work to excavate and bring to light all of this darkness and evil and get it eradicated in our lifetime, which I think, you know, they say you don't get great wins without great challenges and difficulties. And as hard as this year has been, now we know who our friends are, at least in the main. And you can walk into any city, any state in my country anyway, and almost instantaneously know your tribe and know who's not in your tribe. And the darkness is becoming more overt. They're becoming more overreaching. But in so doing, it's waking up the masses. And it's a wake-up call that frankly, all of us, I think, needed to some degree, some less than others, some more than others. But man, you can't avoid right now facing reality. And it's only when you face it, you can handle it. So I'm all for it.
It's very interesting because as we move out of darkness into light, the only benefit of darkness, as I've said before, is it exposes the stars. But as you come out into the light exposes the darkness and it can't live there anymore. And it's some of the stuff we're seeing right now is disgusting. It's horrible, but the light is exposing it. We're seeing some pretty disgusting things happen that we didn't see before. And it's how we handle it, how we understand what's happening. I saw something that made me smile earlier when these election results that are happening in the States right now were coming out. And it was very, very clear, not that it matters, that the Republican had beaten the Democrats. And the Democrats said, well, before we publish it, we need to recheck it before we can make it public. It's almost like we need to see how many more votes we need to get it back to us again. Because they're so brutal, they're so bad at it. And now they've been exposed. The trouble is with evil is there's an arrogance. They've got away with it for so long.
Yes.
They've controlled
There is
the
an
courts.
arrogance and a brazen sort of flavor to it all. But, when you look back at other challenging times in history, like the Holocaust, you see the trajectory. All of a sudden, evil becomes rampant. It goes up and up and up. Everybody suddenly has to confront it. And at that final precipice, you see the death throes, and they get worried, and they start acting out, and they start overreaching. Hitler started fighting fires on too many fronts. He started really trying to, there's a good chance, looking back at history, that if he hadn't just been high on meth that his doctors were feeding him, and probably a little brain addled as a result, and been a little more sane about the path that he had taken, and a little less overt and overreaching, that he might have done a lot more damage than he was ultimately able to exact. But such is the nature of evil and the inherent bend of people who are tyrants. And what we're seeing is a lot of tyrannical folk be exposed over the last year and a half. And they follow, for lucky for us, a very cookie cutter trajectory. And you start to see them get frantic in the final days. And I think that's what we're witnessing now.
It is. It's very interesting how the tyrants, let's say, of America that are there now, how they tried to point out that Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, Colonel Gaddafi, they pointed at them as tyrants. The reality is they weren't. They were men in control, and they weren't tyrannical, because I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Osama bin Laden, who was an incredibly humble man, and a 6'7" tall, a very tall man with a very softly spoken voice, and people respected him and loved him. I've never met Gaddafi, but I know his daughter, Aisha, and I know his sons, and they spoke very highly of how much he did for the people. But the perception that we have from mainstream media and the tyrants who ran the CIA and the cabal and the deep state, all that crew, they pointed out, oh, no, they're the tyrants, they're bad. And I can tell you, as a man, when I saw the reaction between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, it was like two little schoolboys who hadn't seen each other for a few years since school. They were like best of buddies. And they've got one thing hugely in common, that they want to protect our women and children. Whether you like Putin or not, he's always wanted to protect women and children, and always been anti anybody that's abused women and children. So they had something very strong in common to start with, just from a body language point of view, which I studied as a doctor of psychology. You could just see they were like two friends. We can take these people on and we can beat these people because we're doing it from a good place.
Interesting. Well, I mean, there's so much really to unpack, but the last year, again, has shown the Mockingbird media to be exactly what it is. Every time I grab a microphone for longer than 5 minutes, I say, you've got to go Google this. This is not some conspiracy theory. The congressional folk in our country in the 70s, the Church Committee, had a whole congressional record that looked at the CIA's sins over the preceding 2 decades. One of which was the Mockingbird episode, where they were, looking actively to recruit anchors from various news and print and broadcast journalism into their ranks, and then place their guys into the news ranks so they can control the narrative. And I think they did. And, the CIA never came out and said, we're not doing that program anymore. I think the closest they got was George Bush the first saying, we're not going to pay news anchors to do our bidding anymore. But that's a far cry from saying they're not still in bed together. And all you have to do is go Google any of those, pieces that they put together of all of the different news anchors saying the same thing at the same time, 80 different news anchors on the same day from, Detroit down to San Diego, down to Arkansas. And you look at that, and I run that 60-second clip for my audiences, and I say, tell me after watching that we don't have a controlled press. Mm-hmm. How can anybody say our press is not still actively being controlled? I'm not here to tell you by whom. I'm not here to say anything more than you can't argue with the fact that it is being controlled. And I was helping my daughter with college applications this last weekend, and she said, I think I'm going to tell them the Cambodia story. And I said, remind me again. And she said, remember when I was 8, I have one child. I don't know, as a doctor of psychology, maybe you can help me. I don't know if I've done more harm than good or more good than harm here, but we were in Cambodia. She was in 3rd grade. We were traveling. We were outside of Phnom Penh. And of course, a half hour out is where the killing fields are.
Yep.
And they're just empty fields, desolate, empty fields that look like any sort of open countryside, except that those are where Pol Pot and the people who did his bidding in the 1970s executed more than a quarter of the Cambodian population into shallow graves. Mm-hmm. And we did a walking tour, a self-guided tour. I would listen one track ahead so that my daughter was, not horrified overly so by whatever they might be saying. And I'd fast forward her stuff. But at the end, you can't miss it. There is a glass structure that's about 10 feet wide by 10 feet deep. It goes 4 stories into the sky, and they have shelving in there. And that is where they put the bones of the executed victims that to this day, Charlie, I don't know if you know this, still wash up every year when the torrential type rains come. And they segregate them by leg bones, arm bones, and then babies, and then skulls. And my daughter was looking at this, and I remember looking at my husband going, she's probably going to need years of therapy. We probably shouldn't have done this one with her. And she looked at me and she said, Mama, how did this happen? Mm-hmm. And I looked back at her and I knelt down and I said, honey, those in power lied to the people. But by the time they figured it out, it was just too late. Mm-hmm. And she recycled that story into her college application essay. And she said, I had a very unusual childhood, but I'm grateful for it because I was taught you question everything. Mm-hmm. And I thought my job here has been at least, done in part because we just can't trust the narrative. And even the narratives that I grew up as a very questioning child, there's layers and layers. This is an onion that I don't know that we're ever going to get done peeling. But thank God that people are waking up and starting to take those first steps to awaken themselves and the people they love on this journey of finding truth and finding justice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one thing with children is they're very resilient. I will say in the defense of people who've been brainwashed by television and media, I grew up in a religious cult called Plymouth Brethren, where we didn't have television, we didn't have radio, we didn't have newspapers, we didn't celebrate birthdays or Christmas or Easter. And I had all the answers. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I had all the answers at school. I had every single answer because I lived in this bubble that everybody, it was an echo chamber. Everybody was saying the same thing. And when you've got the media all saying the same thing, it's tough because they're all saying the same thing. And I had somebody say to me at the weekend, hello, Miki, you're on silent, sweetheart. There you go. No, you're still quiet. You're not on silent, but we can't hear you. So, no, we've still not got any sound from you. And it says you're unmuted, but we still can't hear you. So,
let me see. Does this work?
Yes.
Okay. I had to take off my mic, so I'm probably echoey. Sorry.
No, that's fine. We were just talking about brainwashing because I grew up brainwashed in a religious cult. And I had all the answers because I lived in this echo chamber that everybody was saying the same thing. And when you've got the media saying the same thing, I do understand people because I had a conversation with somebody I know. And he said to me on Sunday, he said, Charlie, I've made my decision. I trust the media. Mm. And I said, you've done no research. He said, I don't need to. I trust the media. And that's what we're up against. That's what we're up against. So now we're into the second phase where the media are going to have to, it'll come to a stage where either we'll have an emergency broadcast or Truth Social will be putting out the truth for people to see. Because what I understand is there's going to be either Trump TV or something of that nature where it'll be news channels coming out with the truth. But for those people, I think we've come up to a wall right now where those that are awake and aware are awake and aware. There are those now that they weren't ever asleep. They were always in a coma. Mm-hmm. They're still in a coma, and you can't get through to them at all because if it's not on the television, they won't believe it. They are so programmed. There's a couple that have turned recently, and it's very interesting their reaction. The their reaction has been fascinating. They turn around and say, well, deep down, I knew all along.
Yeah. That, I think, is the majority.
Exactly.
There's a resistance to change, but I also think they call it a deep state of hypnosis for a reason.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It is a hypnosis. And we're coming into a fascinating phase. I was telling Leigh earlier that I had inside information yesterday that we're going to get an announcement at 9 o'clock this evening from the White House from President Trump.
Mm.
So I don't know what he's doing up there. But I've also heard from another source from his PA down in Mar-a-Lago that he's gone to the White House today. So that ties that up. And Simon Parks heard that he was going to be there at 9 o'clock this morning Eastern time. And I said, I'd prefer my timeline to your timeline, because if it turns out it's 9 p.m. and you're sat there for 12 hours, you're going to be going absolutely bonkers. Whereas if it comes out at 9 a.m. and I've said everyone 9 p.m., I'm going to go, yes.
Well, here's the thing, Charlie, I feel like the time is now for the people to stand. I mean, our mystery back channel said it was going to be 70% military, 30% civilian, and less than 10. And we are that 30% civilian, and Leigh is our commander in chief. Okay, this is the moment. It is time for us citizens to strike. Literally strike as hard as we can with that huge, massive steel hammer that Leigh carries in her hands. And she is literally ready to knock down this glass house they are in. We have got to stand strong now. We've all been awake for a long time. We know who stands among us. We've created our armies within our own workforces. We are ready to strike. I am so ready to get behind her and give her anything she needs to support her, because this woman is a spitfire. I love her. I'm so excited and honored to even be here today, Leigh. I'm seriously you're one of my heroes.
Oh my gosh. You guys have to realize I have to get my head into a taxi in about a half hour. So I don't get my ego too overinflated here. But honestly, Charlie, I don't know if you know the backstory here. I literally met Miki a day and a half ago, if that. And already we are firm, fast friends. And it goes back to what I was saying. It might have been before we started recording that, the upside to this last year and a half is you can walk into any city, state, town, county in my country and probably around the world, although I haven't been outside my own borders, unfortunately, since March of 2020. And you instantly know who your tribe is. And I don't know if you feel this way, Miki or Charlie, but I'm not talking who you have a lot in common with. I'm talking if I had a child who was needing babysitting, that I would turn to probably 98% of the people I meet at these freedom rallies, even though I didn't know them before. Mm-hmm. And if I needed them to watch my child, be please watch my child for the next hour, and actually feel comfortable with that. And this is from a person who fights the brothel industry in Asia for the last 10 years and would never really leave my child with anybody. But that is how true a read I have on my gut instinct basis on who the people are who are really wanting to save this country and this planet. And they're here and they're full of fire and they're ready to peacefully, because this is going to be a peaceful revolution, to really take back our little planet Earth for good and not for evil. And you can just tell them. You can walk into a hotel, a bar, walking down the street, you can see who they are. And yeah, it's aided a little bit by who's got a mask on and who doesn't. But even beyond the masking and the not masking, this has just separated the wheat from the chaff. And it's time for good people to rise up. And one of the things we're on here, of course, today to talk about is what people are starting to do here in my country. It's exciting to hear that our buddy, DJT or whatever, is going to be up at the White House today. I think it's interesting timing, along with what's going on. I've been hearing from so many, Lynn Wood is fond of saying it, but lots of others as well, that, the world is to some degree waiting on the people to be ready enough to really do what needs doing. And I think we're finally at the tipping point. We are finally at the tipping point. And I started getting the feel of that about 10 days ago when workers across America started reaching out to me. And once they told me where they were at, which I'm happy to share with your viewers, I realized, we're here now. We've been waiting and we're finally here.
Today's a very special day, I believe.
I think so too.
Isn't it 1 year ago that somebody tried to steal the election?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah,
it is.
It's exactly 1 year.
It's actually also an 8-year delta from when Trump sent his first tweet that the clock was starting on the story of the Book of Revelation, when I tell you the whole story of the stars. So that's another one, but I'm just saying it's an 8-year delta. It's a big one for me.
Exactly. All these things, I've gone past the stage of saying it's a coincidence.
Not a coincidence.
It's not at all. And these things happen for a reason. And even though when you move into the fifth dimension, which has no concept of time, these become exciting as we look backwards and see how it's all come together. And sometimes on this journey, I think most of us a year ago were disappointed because we didn't see what was going to happen. But this has all been so important, as now we look back and see he's done it all by himself. He's destroyed it himself. Yeah. Whereas if it had been done by President Trump, they'd have had him as a dictator.
Yes.
Whereas they've let them do it themselves. All they've done is given them the rope, and they've hung themselves, which has been looking back, it's been a pleasure to watch.
Really, best movie ever.
It has, and it's absolutely amazing. And I'm seeing here in Europe, for an example, 1 year ago, the price of gasoline was €1 per litre, not a gallon, a litre. Today, it's between 150 and 170, and the mainstream media hasn't had a squeak about it. It's between 50 and 70% more than it was a year ago, but nobody's saying anything.
I have a girlfriend who's running around sticking stickers on every single gas pump, like Biden did this, Biden did this, Biden did this. Yeah. Everywhere she goes, she's just like handing them out. She's like, boom, boom, boom. It's so funny. She's just littering.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and also this theme or meme, "Let's go Brandon," is really upsetting them. I mean, the mainstream media are referring to as a terrorist threat. I mean, this is how desperate they are.
I want to give all the kids an idea for an amazing viral campaign that they can do if they're brave enough at school. My son has a little boy that showed up one day without a mask, and everyone's like, "Oh, how'd you do that? You know, what did you do?" And he had gotten an exemption, and he showed up, without one. And then all the 10 more kids are like, "How do I get that? How do I get that?" So we have this packet that we're handing out to these kids. They're all going to run around. But this one boy being that brave, I feel like he deserves to be called the Lone Mask Ranger or something.
Yeah.
And he should put like the Lone Ranger, mask on and run around school recording himself. And that would go so viral. I think we should totally make that a thing. And if anybody's brave enough to do that, I'll send them a t-shirt. I'll send them the mask. Just reach out to me on my channel. I would love to support your kids because it created an entire movement within this school. The 8th graders started it, the 7th graders are going to follow, the 6th graders to follow after that. And once half of the class is not wearing masks, the teachers, they cannot enforce it.
Yeah. Miki, I think you're onto something, and you're absolutely right. There's strength in numbers when they've got too many kids coming in without masks. I said from the beginning, this last summer, moms were calling me and they said, "What are we going to do with our kids? We're over the mask." And I said, they need to I said, "What are your percents?" And they're like, "Well, we're running 50% that don't want a mask." And I said, send them all to school, have them wear white, let the media know they're coming, let law enforcement know they're coming, and make it be a thing. Like, you're going to overwhelm not just the school's resources, but law enforcement resources. And they're going to be stuck with an option of dragging these kids out by their feet, in which case, if they're wearing white and bleeding through their clothing, and it's starting to look like, the civil rights era in the 1950s and 60s in America, you've already won that battle as long as somebody's got a cell phone with a video camera recording. But the problem is they've been picking us off, so everybody loved the idea. And then apparently at the junior high that these people were talking to me about, one kid showed up and he became, unfortunately, the scapegoat. And I said, "No, you got to stick together." But momentum has been building and they are sticking together. And I will say, I think the kids are ready. Based on this last weekend, my daughter had a Halloween party. Kids were showing up in Let's Go Brandon gear. The kids are now like running with it. And man, you don't want to get the teens involved because they have endless energy. The left,
and they've got cell phones.
Yeah, the left is in trouble when the teens are starting to sing Let's Go Brandon songs and show up for Halloween dressed as such. So,
and I rewarded my son with a new computer. I mean, this is the thing we have to do as parents. We have to tell them and teach them to stand in their sovereignty. We have to honor them and realize we are sending them to a concentration camp every day. It's bad. It's really bad. The critical race theory is bad here, guys. My daughter cries herself to sleep every night. I know she's in a war zone when she goes there. We've got to stand strong now. Even if we're silent, even even if we're shy, this is the time to learn to be anonymous. Go make yourself an anonymous email account, send it to every single person in work, tell them about the strike, start building your army. You're going to get 15 people that are going to reply to you. Then go ask those 15 people to go do a silent or a one-on-one verbal survey. Come back with more people. Keep building your army. You don't even have to show your face or show your name. This is what we've been learning by our back channel for the last 2 years, is how to be anonymous, how to work within this workforce and not lose our jobs, because we stand up for what we believe.
And one of the things with my son Justin, what it did was it helped him to find the solution to the problems at school. And his solution was, can you pray with me before I go to school?
Aww.
And that when you get a child that can connect to God before they go to school, they get a power. God looks after them in school. He looks after them, and he comes back and he says to me, I don't need to be at school because they're teaching me rubbish. And I said, no, you do need to be at school, and there's a reason. So that when you have children, you can tell your children, when I was at school, they taught me all of this shite. I had to put up with this shite. But it's very important on the process of growing. Yeah. That you learn very little from success. You learn everything from suffering and pain. And he's learning now. So when he has children, he can explain to them, they were teaching me this absolute garbage. And he'll come back and he'll tell me stuff that happens at school. And I say, well, let's do some investigation as to whether that's true or not, shall we? And it's very, very constructive. Oops, here comes the boss. She's off. She's just going off to work. So yeah, but it's very, very constructive for these children, and to be supportive and not to dismiss anything that our children say to us. Yeah. Because they're very creative at times, and that's a good thing. We want to encourage that. It's just being supportive as a parent without wrapping them up in cotton wool, and exposing them to what's going on, so that they can grow. I'm incredibly proud of Justin's understanding of what's going on. He very often he wants to understand more about it. He wants to understand what this is and what that means and what this means. And the other thing, of course, where we live in Spain, we live on the Costa del Sol, which is a goldfish bowl of multiculturalism. So even though Justin goes to an English international college, there's only probably 2 English kids in that class. And you've got Dutch, you've got Nigerian, you've got Italian, you've got Moroccan, you've got Algerian, you've got all different Danish, Norwegian, Swedish, all different nationalities. So racism doesn't exist because they grow up together. There's 2 little girls in the classes below. One's from Nigeria and one's from Finland. And I mean, one's as white as snow, and the other's as black. And they're the best friends ever. They're 2 little girls who love each other. They cuddle each other. They talk to each other. They hold each other's hands. And that's when you realize that racism doesn't come from here. It comes from the political arena of division.
Yeah, and the gender confusion is happening here as well. I can't believe how fast they can push this on our kids. I mean, my daughter has a girlfriend who came and said, yeah, please stop calling me this girl's name. I want to be called a boy's name. It's so confusing it's so confusing for them. I can't believe how hard it's coming. I mean, my daughter's best friend is Persian, and she's kind of got more olive skin, and they're just so happy together. I actually might move them into more of a private school, or I don't know, together, just because I'm tired of her not having a support system of people who are awake. Unfortunately, a lot of her friends are asleep at this point in 6th grade. But has Leigh been able to tell you about what's happening here in November? Okay, we got to get into this, you guys. This is so huge because this is the Red Sea moment. Like, you're feeling it building. We know it's happening worldwide. I would love to see this nationwide walkout happen worldwide. This will be in November to remember. I am so proud of the citizens who are ready to stand up and fight this war in irregular warfare, as Leigh puts it. So go for it, girl. Tell them what's happening.
All right, Charlie, you ready for me to drop the bomb on your listeners who haven't heard about it yet?
100%.
Okay, well, thanks for having us on so we could in part do that in this hour. So let me give you the backdrop, and it's not going to be a surprise to anybody who's listened to you for longer than a day. But Biden in our country forced this unconstitutional mandate, called it a mandate, said it had the force of law. Of course it doesn't. It was really much more like a press release. And he's wanting OSHA, of course, to do his dirty work. OSHA's in charge of workplace safety. They have no jurisdiction when it comes to viruses in people's bodies. Their job is to get toxins out of the air when you're at work. So OSHA is scratching their head. We've got people on the inside going, we don't even know what we're supposed to do with this. And the last time they tried to use this particular pathway in OSHA was in the 80s with asbestos. And even then, the US Supreme Court was like, So the reality is that this is not going to hold water. And every single lawyer, whether they're on the conservative side or the not conservative side, if you ask them and they understand how OSHA works and how Biden and the executive branch works, they're like, yeah, this is never going to hold water. But it doesn't matter if Biden can bluff his way through the next 4 to 6 months and get all of the employers to fake mandate something that doesn't have the force of law, but everybody thinks it does. So they go out and they get the shot. Their work is done if the US Supreme Court says 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, oh, just kidding, it was unconstitutional. And Biden scratches his head and gives an apology. And then at this point, we're 90% vaccinated in our country. That would be his goal. And I think that's what he's aiming for. But it ain't going to happen. And here's why it's not going to happen. About 2 weeks ago, shortly after the press release from our alleged president hit the airwaves, I started having my phone blow up. And these were people, I want your listeners to understand what I'm saying and what I'm not able to say. These were people who make product and who move the product. And in first world countries, like where you come from, Charlie, where Miki and I are living, we're in the habit of thinking headsets and bottles of water just fall out of the sky into our universe, because it's so easy when you're living in a first world country to get the things you need and all of the things you don't need and just want. But the reality is all of those products go through a supply chain. They are made by people, oftentimes not in our country, and then they are shipped right across oceans in containers. Those containers come off the docks, they go onto planes, trains, automobiles, you name it, and they're trucked in many cases by way of truckers into warehouses where they sit, and more blue collar guys unload those into warehouses and then eventually into the stores. And, Biden and all of the politicians and even the people, the regular folk think, oh, this country runs on the back of white collar workers, the doctors, the lawyers, the architects, the accountants. I am here to tell you, it does not run on the back of white collar workers like me. This country in the main runs because blue collar workers show up at 9 o'clock, go home at 5 o'clock, punch a clock every day and do their darn jobs. And those men and women to a person were pissed off. They were calling me for two things. One, they wanted top flight legal counsel to bring lawsuits against their employers. But even they understood that when the court system has abandoned us in many states, the blue states aren't holding the line. Even judges in red states are getting incorrect results on these cases involving this unconstitutional vaccine mandate. When the courts aren't protecting us, when the legislative branch isn't, when the executive branch isn't, they understand, yeah, they can bring a lawsuit, but that is not where the traction is. The traction is on the back of who they are and what they do for a living. And these guys are upset. They said, if Biden wants to force an unconstitutional mandate and bluff his way, we're going to call his bluff. We aren't playing ball. If my employer thinks they can force me out after 40 years of doing a blue collar job when I'm an inch away from my retirement and pension, they got another thing coming. I will bankrupt my employer and bring this economy to its freaking knees before I ever let this country be sold out any more than it already has, before we ever lose another piece of freedom. And these men, just so your people understand, these guys are working at very large employers that are anywhere from 30 to 50 to 70 or 75% unvaccinated. And so what they told me is they were going to do a multi-day strike. There was somebody had put out a little flyer on social media saying, oh, we're going to have a 6 or 8 hour no show to work day on November, whatever this is, 3rd, I guess today. And that was all well and good, but these guys knew in their gut that was not enough. They weren't playing. These guys were playing for keeps, if they were playing at all. And they said, we are going to do a week-long, basically sustained walkout. And I said, let me make sure I understand what you're saying. you work in supply chain type like industries, and you want to do a 4-day walkout. Is that going to do what I think it's going to do? And they said, yes, it will.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, all right. And they were already eyeballing the week of November 8th, next Monday. And I said, let me do some math. I'm really bad at math. It's going to take me a minute, but that's a 4-day strike, 2 weeks in front of Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Is that timed to make sure that the supply chain, if we're going to disrupt it, is disrupted walking into Christmas season and the holiday season? And they said, well, if we're not moving product 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, yes, my friend, that is exactly what will happen. And I said, God be with you. You let me know what I can do to be of service to you, because I believe in my gut, in my heart, and in every cell of my being, even right now talking about it, the hair on my arms and neck is standing up. I said, this is the checkmate move against this administration that we have been waiting for. And it is being brought to us by the employees in this country who are out to prove a point. If you're going to give us a kill shot and condition our job on it and make a mandate that's unconstitutional, we're going to play this game of chicken and we're going to roll you back. We are going to break the supply chain before we ever let freedom be sold out in the country that was founded and based on freedom. And God bless them, Charlie. They are doing it. So the week that we're playing ball with again is November 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. It is next Monday through Thursday. Every single employee working for an employer that is mandating the vaccine is encouraged. And I would go so far to say it is your patriotic duty to not show up to work, with the caveat that we are not advocating illegal action. So if you're in an industry where you're not allowed by law or by contract to go on a strike, obviously take that into account. By the same token, I can't hold back the tide, Charlie. And this Southwest flu, airline pilots aren't allowed to strike. And so they haven't gone on strike. They've just gotten really bad Fauci freedom flu, it would seem. So be careful what you wish for, Fauci. You just may get it, and it just may backfire upon you.
And if you need any backup support, something that I've done is I've got one of these cards.
Must not be.
I must not be vaccinated, and it comes with a QR code, and on the back of it, it's very interesting. It was done by 2 women in the UK, but it's worldwide. Vaxcontrolgroup.com, and not only can you not be vaccinated, you cannot be discriminated against because you're part of a vaccine control group, and this has empowered tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. I think it only costs about $6. And it's already, I used it yesterday as my form of identity to the police when they stopped me in a control group. Oh, they didn't like it one little bit. But because I like winding them up now. I've had a year and a half of fun. Now I'm just having a bit of light entertainment. So yeah, this is amazing. For next week, absolutely brilliant. And that's what it does, is it just puts the squeeze on them.
It does.
They'll suddenly realize that they've been fed the rope and hung themselves, which is absolutely beautiful, because you're absolutely right. This supply chain, if you stop that for 4 days, that will do some serious damage.
And the farmers are awake.
Bloomberg said yesterday, you guys, I don't know if you saw this, Bloomberg came out with an article that said, if America's supply chain goes south, it could have global repercussions. And I believe that to be absolutely true. But again, folks, I don't think I mentioned it, so I'm just going to do a plug, not to self-promote, but just so people can find out. You need to text the word freedom. Anybody who's watching and doesn't already know about this, they need to text the word freedom, Charlie, to 53445. Again, that number is 53445. One more time, 53445. You text the word freedom to that, and you can get a copy of the electronic flyer. It gives you the dates. We're also going to be keeping people up to speed with where they can join rallies, because there are going to be rallies coast to coast. They've been taking over the Brooklyn Bridge on and off for the last couple of weeks. Folks have, it's a new day in America when you see BLM and Antifa type folks walking in solidarity against this vaccine mandate with every other person. So we're going to see stuff like that. I'm willing to bet you going on next week. You need to stay in touch, know where your rallies are, and you need to get this flyer, not just all over social media, but into the hands of 100 of your closest friends, colleagues, your cousin Eddie, your PTA president, the people you go to church and school and work with. These people need to know. And social media is heavily censored, so we're asking people to post it everywhere. But go ahead and do a text campaign. Go ahead and spend your time while you're eating dinner, emailing all your friends and your databases this flyer. And you know it is a game-changing mover when every single person I've talked to, from Bobby Kennedy in Children's Health Defense to Miki's group to Lynn Wood's group to just everybody, Simone Gold, General Flynn last weekend, when I told them what the blue collar boys were doing and girls, they said, put my name on that flyer. And there was none of the infighting that you normally see where people are like, oh, so-and-so's on the flyer. No, I can't have my name on the flyer then. They instantly understood this is the week that the tide is going to turn worldwide in this fight at the worker level. And if you ever read a history book and supported workers in the last 2 centuries who were striking for better working conditions, who were striking for fair wages, who were striking for safer work environments, no dangerous mines, no dangerous triangle shirtwaist factories with girls going up in flames, burning in garment districts in the last 200 years. If you supported them when you read about those times in history, in the history books in 6th grade, by golly, it is your duty to support this strike, because why these boys are striking is for the right to call their body their own, and for all of us to have the freedom to do with our body what we want. And if we don't have that freedom, we don't have any freedom. And you've got to support this strike. It is a strike against genocide, against a kill shot, and it is a strike and a stand for freedom. It is a nationwide walkout starting next Monday. And I've had people say to me, I'm going to go get a job just so I can walk out.
Yeah,
that's how badly people want to be a part of it.
I want to add a few more action items to that. So when you walk out and you have those 4 days sitting there, spend your time on social media, take videos of the activity. If you go to rallies, publish this all over the place. You guys, you have 4 days to sit there and just ping your friends, tell everybody what you're doing. Again, you can create anonymous accounts. You can do it, your own face, or you can just record the activities that are going on. We need to use hashtag Nationwide Walkout and push this thing as hard as we can. Every single person that's being brave in this moment, honor them. Truly, they're walking in God's, path. They are following their intuition. They understand this is a time to stand in our sovereignty.
It is, and if you don't walk out and you get vaccinated, I'm going to let you into a little secret. Yesterday, I had a 1-hour conversation with a director from one of the top vaccination companies. He's somebody I've known for 15, 20 years. I know him personally. Mm-hmm. He's worked with them for 25 years. He's one of the directors. And he said to me, Charlie, there's 3 of us who know, and we've been blocked from coming out and saying this, that they on the inside know that this is a vaccination or a jab that will kill people. They know this. They know what they're doing, Charlie. He said, this is part of a depopulation agenda. They know. And he said, there's nothing I can do to stop them, because he's received threats against him and his family if he opens his mouth. This is how they operate. So you can stay in your job. And if you take the vaccine, don't come to me and say, I didn't know. Ignorance on this one is no defense. I've done the research. I've spoken to people on every single level. And thank God for the blue collar workers who are going to stand up on your behalf. If you haven't got the bollocks to do it, they're going to do it for you. And I take my hat off to them and I stand with every single one of them, because these people we're in a war. Just because they haven't got guns, they've got needles.
Yeah.
The needles are more dangerous than the guns ever were.
Yeah.
And I've also had nurses come to me in tears. I've got over 100 nurses that can't go public that have said to me, there's a number of things. Number one, in Q2 in the United Kingdom, the average number of births of babies is 140,000. And in Q2 this year, 11,000 births. That's it.
What?
11,000. Wow. Secondly, they're getting clusters of babies die within 72 hours of being born from vaccinated mothers. The medical profession are not putting it public. I have, I don't know how many women, young women between the age of 18 and 25, that since they've had the vaccination, their menstrual cycles have stopped.
Oh my gosh.
So this is not just a coincidence. This is hard fact. This isn't scaremongering. Do your own research. And thank God for the blue collar workers who are going to stand up on your behalf to bring this to a close very, very quickly, because they're doing this knowingly. We're in a war. Don't underestimate it. Just because they've got needles and not guns, it's our job, Miki, Leigh, and myself, to tell you the truth. And you don't have to take our word for it. You don't have to. The research you can do yourself. If you can't be bothered, then take my word.
Yeah, and I feel like this is happening. Sorry, go ahead, Leigh.
I was going to say the blue collar workers have started a sea change, but as soon as I got off the phone with those guys, it's really a God thing, Charlie. And I know, Miki, I've talked to you about this, because as soon as I hung up that phone, I had aerospace defense employees calling me. I got off the phone with them. I had major telecom employees calling me. I got off the phone with that group. I'm talking back to back to back to back. I got off the phone with that group. I had guys who contract with the military who make our weapons calling. I got off the phone with that group. We have folks in government, all levels of government. The irony I can't even get past. I'm talking national agencies. I'm talking local agencies. I'm talking people who control grids. There is not a single sector who is not upset. The employees have the power. They know it. They're running with the ball. They are putting the bit between their teeth, and they are going for broke next week. It is not just blue collar started it. Those boys were out in front when they called me, but it is gonna be brought up in the back by every worker in every industry, white collar, blue collar, and everything in between. And you are 100% right, Charlie. This is a war. And in war, times of peace and living in a first world country, you can exist sitting on the fence. You don't ever have to pick a side. You can live in the shades of gray. Not anymore. We are at war. It is a much more dangerous war, given that there are no bombs going off, because to that degree, people are allowed to sleep a little longer before they wake up. But it is still, in fact, a war. And in war, there are two sides, and you pick a side. This is the day. This is the week. You start picking a side if you haven't done so. And by the way, recognize your failure to pick a side is still a damned decision. It was just the wrong decision. If you are acting by inaction, neutrality only ever aids the oppressor, never the oppressed, never the oppressed. We need to get off the fence. We need to get active. And by that, I mean peaceful rallying, but just simply no show. This is an economic war, and we can win it when we just decide we're going to sit it out. And the blue collar boys and the white collar girls and all of the folks, every gender, every race, every political persuasion. This is not about who voted for whom last November. God bless them. This is the one thing, when you start taking out the children, and when you start telling people they can't work to feed their family, you have a unique ability to unite not just a country, but a world. And I don't think Biden understood that in the least, but boy, baby, he's going to understand it come Monday morning, November 8th, because the country, and I am guessing the planet, is going to be sitting it out for a week, and the supply chain is going to go down in flames, as well it should. And the left is going to say, oh, it's all the right-wing crazies that brought it to its knees. No, thank you. It is people like Biden who said, you have to work, you have to get a shot that could very well kill you. And they said, we may be blue collar, but we're nobody's fool, and we ain't playing that game. We will walk the hell out before we let us be fired and freedom be sold out on our watch. God love them. I'm with them.
And guys, if we lose this battle this week, they're coming after our kids. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind. They're already starting to try to lower the age of consent to 5 years old here. It will not happen, not on my watch. I'm sitting here trying to teach my kids how to run away if they come at them with some needle. Where are they going to run? I have to make sure they grab a cell phone. I have to make sure. This is ridiculous. We have got to win this battle. So anybody who thinks in their mind, maybe I should do it, just do it. That's God talking. That's him telling you this is the right thing to do. Get on the right side of history in this moment, in this hour, because the Red Sea is parting. We have to grab our children and take them across.
Absolutely. And I have heard people say, Miki, they're like, well, I don't know if I should strike because it's not really affecting me yet. Guys, it's coming. And if you're not familiar with Martin Niemöller's poem, who, his pastor, I believe, who wrote it at the end of World War II, he said, it's the one at first they came. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me. And by then there was nobody left to speak out. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The fact that your butt might not be in the sling or over the burner and it might not be too hot under your particular hide yet is no excuse. Our children's lives are on the line. This planet's life is on the line. I have no doubt we're going to win, because the fact that all of us are sitting on a conference call in front of all these viewers today is proof that good always wins, freedom wins, righteousness wins. But let me tell you something, as somebody who works in third world countries that had genocide since the time I've been alive, your existence is manifestly bettered the earlier you get in the fight. You don't want to be fighting this after you've been moved to 3 different FEMA camps. You can't access your bank account, and they came for you first because you were a millionaire or a billionaire, and that's how the communists roll. They want the resources you have, so they go after the rich guys first. Your money ain't going to protect you. Nobody is going to protect you. FDR and Churchill aren't coming to our rescue like in the first Holocaust. The reason we're facing a second worldwide Holocaust right now is because, Charlie, I firmly believe we didn't fully learn the lesson the first time. We allowed people to rescue those who were being persecuted. This one, this time, this unique moment in history, it's on us. We're going to save ourselves, God willing, and I know it's going to work out, because the blue collar boys are in the game, guys, and they are going to kick this little soccer ball right into that goal. But we got to join them. That's what we're here to do. We are put here for a time such as this. We have everything we need. We are the heroes we have been waiting for. Your week is next Monday, November 8th. You text freedom to the number 53445 and you get in the game. If you've already been in the game, I love you. You have my support, but we are growing an army. It is going to be a pivotal moment in history. People are going to be shooting film, taking pictures, and writing about the people who had the guts and the balls to hold the line. And that is every American citizen, man, woman, every faith, every creed, every race. I'll see you next Monday, and I can't wait to be there.
Exactly. And the other thing that's exciting for me is most of these blue collar workers are men. On my journey, they've all been women. The women woke up far quicker. It's now the time for the men to stand up and be counted.
Yes,
because
right.
They haven't been there on this journey. 80% of my following has been women. So I take my hat off to all the blue collar workers that are men out there. It's time. As one woman said to me the other day, it's a woman's job to prepare the barbecue and get the food. It's now time for the men to turn up and cook. And that's what we're coming to. That's
and if
exactly where we're at.
And if you're awake and you're a woman, get your husband to do it. Give him some incentive. I'm telling you, there are so many ways. This is unusual, irregular warfare. If you have any kind of a following, if you're a minister or a preacher, or you're an influencer and you have a channel, get this out everywhere. Use hashtag Nationwide Walkout. We are going to get this thing viral. It is going to be I hope it goes worldwide. I really do. I would absolutely encourage any other country to get involved with us, get behind us. Let's make a global stance against this less than 1% globalist, elite that think that they have complete control over us. They have been bled. All of their funds have been pulled. Okay. They've literally taken out the poppy fields in Afghanistan. And, we know that there's been many tunnels that have been cleared. We know that they're making huge inroads when it comes to decentralizing these, especially the food supply in America. So I think the farmers are wide awake, and I think everyone's just primed and ready.
And also, it's never too late to start, because just for the record, yesterday, for some unknown reason, 1 year after they took down my YouTube channel, it came back up again. And I went back to looking at my old original videos where I had 37 followers.
I was following you at 2000.
But if Charlie can do it from 37 to 17.5 million in 18 months, 20 months, I think it is now, then anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. You just need to get out there with the truth, do a little bit of research and just the truth. That's it. And then anybody can do it. It's not too late. It's not too late now to start your own YouTube channel, start your own Instagram channel, or whatever, Telegram channel, and start putting some information out that you've found, because your piece of the puzzle is as valuable as mine.
Yes.
And every single person has an equal value, because you're handmade by God. So you're as an equal value to every single one of us. And it's absolutely brilliant to see people coming forward. I'm so blessed to know both Leigh and Miki. I mean, for me, it's a privilege and an honor to know you both. You're both doing amazing work. And as we put 3 pieces of the puzzle together, that's where we get our strength from.
Exactly.
Right. Well, no less so and no more so than your piece of the puzzle, Charlie. You're doing a huge value add, huge service to people around the world, helping them see the truths that they don't have time to go independently research themselves. But you know, your point is well taken. We are the new media. CNN hasn't busted 1 million people on any one of its programs in the last 30 days. The Mockingbird media is coming down. The new news media are the people who have a cell phone in their hand and are willing to use it. We are the army. We are the leaders. We are the heroes we've been waiting for. And I can't wait to see what next week brings. Starting today, it sounds like there's going to be some exciting things that are shaken loose today. And I know, Charlie, you're going to keep everybody posted. But again, what a great time to be alive. We are getting to see the victory of good and righteousness and truth and justice over these evil tyrants that have been really in place for centuries. And it's a privilege and an honor to be here. Is it hard work? Yes. Do we have some battles we lose along the way? Yes. Shake them off and keep going. You know, I'm always in shock when people are like, oh, we're never going to win this. I'm like, so what? We just wave the white flag now? You think that the Pattons of the world, you think all of the great army generals just had a bad day and went home and sucked their thumb and curled up with their bottle and never went out on the battlefield again? Like, come on, like Buttercup, suck it up, get up, put your big girl panties on or your big boy panties on and go get back in the game. Persistence is an undervalued trait. So much more gets done with people who are hardworking and persistent than those who are natively smart. This is a battle we can all win. We just have to make the decision to show up and actually be there and do something about it. And people are starting to do that. And it is just such a great thing to see. We're finally getting the numbers we needed, and we're here now. And it's going to be a beautiful month, I have no doubt.
Yeah, so you might want to stock up on food, get your Thanksgiving dinner early.
Yeah, send me over all the links. I'll put them in here so that we can get everybody involved in this. This is very, very important to get everybody involved in this, because if we stand up against tyranny, if you think these people in control are 1%, you're wrong. It's 0.01%. We are 99.9% in the power. We just need to all stand up together against this tyranny. There's only a handful of them, and we can take them down. And at the moment, they are petrified because they can see their world falling apart. And we just need to torment them a little bit more.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Well,
I'm excited to watch.
It's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to see you both. And look forward to catching up with you very, very soon. And it'll be good to catch up with you on the 11th or 12th, wouldn't it?
I know. I'd love to. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Catch us again in a week, Charlie. We'll make a firm date of it. We'll see you again in about 7-8 days.
Perfect. Lots of love.
Love to you too. Thanks, Charlie.
Cheers. Bye.